Hey everyone, welcome back to the Go to Work podcast. I'm Michael LaRue, CEO and co-founder.
Jay Guerrero, anything sales and marketing.
There we go. I like that.
Titles are titles, but man, there's three of us trying to make this company prosperous, and he's great at being the CEO, and we try to wear multiple hats, but sales and marketing I focus on.
Yeah.
He kind of gets a little giggle or laugh because he's got a bunch of hats to wear, so I appreciate that.
We all do. So, very exciting episode actually. It's a service line that we're coming up.
And we love it too.
Coming out with relatively soon. That's background checks.
It's a big one.
It is. It's a critical tool really for employers to do background checks here, especially in the United States. Pre-employment, right?
Yep.
That's really one of the big ones. And on our end, hopefully we're looking at between 2 to 3 weeks is when we come out with background checks. We're going to be a little bit different in the aspect of it's going to be employer initiated, but it's also going to be job seeker initiated. So there's going to be two ways that you're going to be able to order a background check. And we did the job seeker side, and it was more geared towards putting them in the driver's seat, right?
Yes.
Making sure that if they have anything on their record, they're able to go to the county and dispute that, things of that nature. So really getting into that aspect.
Yeah, but also to allow them to highlight themselves, right? So we're changing the culture of some background checks. It's 99%, if not 100% pre-employment initiated. And then you have some other ones beyond that, but you're not really seeing that the job seeker is the initiator. Yeah. So a lot of proactive type of work. And so we want to highlight backgrounds in general, but also the proactiveness of what we're trying to create, which is a whole different culture in terms of pre-employment, not just for construction, but for every industry. Now, that's what we're focusing on, but we want to kind of talk about some of those things today.
Yeah. No, so it's super exciting, and I think on our end, right, is creating the aspect of changing the background check culture, right?
Yeah.
Not only being able to do it on the website, but doing it within our app at a flat rate fee.
I love that.
No hidden fees.
No, I love it. Also, there's two things. It's the app-based. Where can you go and do a background through an app, right? And now there's some website-based, but app-based. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the proactiveness that we're talking about. So we'll get into more of that, but those are two big highlights that we want to kind of speak about and highlight and kind of go more in depth about.
Yeah. So let's start at the basics.
Yeah.
What are background checks?
I think that's a great question. Go into some statistics of who's doing this, how many percent of what industry is running a background check. Really what it comes down to is qualifications. Are you qualified on a background check, but also just building trust too? What you said in your interview, what you put on your resume, does that all kind of compute to the actual background check? And so when we say that, there's a couple of things about that, right? So when you think of background checks, it's a couple of things. I want the crowd and the audience to understand this. There's kind of three categories of background checks. There's the criminal, there's the civil, and then there's the verification part. Now, I mentioned civil second, but criminal and verifications are the most popular, right? However, we're not limited to just the civil part. But with those two topics, it's are you qualified criminally, like with your background, but also the verification, so education, qualifications of your certifications, things like that. So those all really mount up to beyond, are you a convicted felon type of thing. And so that's where some misconstrued can come in. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth today.
So you have that. You have your employee verifications. You have your like you said, your licenses is something big, especially the construction and skilled trades, making sure that they have the correct license for the job. Because at the end of the day, that comes down to you. If you don't conduct the correct background check on somebody, right? You can put yourself into a lot of litigation, right? If an accident happens, right, and they don't have, whatever OSHA training they may need, or even just the felony, right? You have, a felon, on the job.
Yeah.
And within the contractor regulations that you're working with, they don't allow that.
100%. I love that.
All of that is one of the biggest things, and one of the big things that we hear as well is that a lot of the small businesses aren't conducting background checks.
Yeah.
About 50% or so.
I was gonna say there's a stat beyond that. I know you'd be prepared about that, but
So
50% are not conducting the background checks. Now again, it's beyond the criminal. When we think background check, in general, it's criminal. Was I convicted? Great. Say you're not convicted. What about your verifications? Verifications is from college all the way down to your certifications.
Correct.
And that's what you're talking about. And so I love that. Beyond just the general population thinking, did I go to jail? Okay, say you didn't. What's beyond that? And that's where verifications come in, and that's what you're talking about, so I love that.
it's a very expensive hiring mistake in the long
Boom,
run.
boom.
Right?
That doesn't cost you much when you do a concentrated background check. Are you looking for the right one? And that's what you're talking about, so
Yeah.
I love that.
So going into that, so you said concentrate. What would you say on the aspect of a normal background check? What's included in a normal background check?
Yeah, so I would say, just from my own experience, there's a general background check, and that's going to be more focused on the criminal side.
Okay.
And that's
What does that look like?
Yeah, so you're looking at, so there's different levels, and we can get a little bit deeper. And so we're trying to do some shorter type of podcast, but there's levels to a background check. Most people think, hey, background check, just run a state, it's going to cover it all.
Okay.
Right? So there's different, when you say, let me get if we're going to look at just criminal, right? Just criminal, let's look at just that focus. Even within that, you want to look at county, state, and federal. There's 3 different levels of criminal background checks. Federal is those higher levels, it's that white collar. It's not as common, but you want to check that, because if you're hiring the accountants, if you're hiring somebody with a fiduciary type of responsibility, that's where it's important. But nonetheless, it's federal, state, and county. So there's 3 major points you want to hit on. Now, there are minimums. If you're just doing a county search, it's going to kind of capture the most. But because there's different court levels, you have county, state, and federal, where if there's means, depending on how in-depth you want to go, there's means to go deeper into that. But your most basic criminal background check, you're looking at county level, right? However, it's not limited to. It has that state and that federal. But really, that's what you want to make sure you're doing. Because there's kind of 3 buckets or 3 levels of a criminal search, you want to make sure, I want to make sure the audience is clear, if you're doing a general one without verification, no education, no certification, just criminal, make sure that you're looking at all 3 levels, federal, county, and state. And that's really going to be it. Now there's products within a background check to help you find out what counties and states to search. However, that's your most basic level to start, is those 3 levels. Mm-hmm. Now, what tool are you using to go into which counties and which states to search? Now, there's some details behind that, but those are the 3 levels you want to be aware of and you're cognizant of searching.
And how about the I-9 E-Verify? Why is that important?
That's actually a great one. So it's kind of outside of most packages. So there's criminal, right, the verification, and then there's the 3 levels. But then now the I-9, you're kind of separating yourself on product-wise. So a lot of times you have packages.
Okay.
This is more so in terms of, can I work in the USA? And so that's going to be strictly up to the employer. If the employer decides to run one I-9, again, I-9 is an E-Verify, can I work in the United States? Am I a legal resident, whether it's on visa, XYZ? But can I legally work in the US? And so there's a couple of things behind that. It's a standalone, something to kind of talk about. Again, this is kind of a high level. It's a standalone, but it's also something where if you start to run it on one, you want to run it on everyone.
On everybody after.
Exactly. Now that is for mitigation and litigation. You want to, kind of exempt yourself from that. You want to reduce your
have the same process.
risk. Yeah. When you do it on one, to avoid discrimination, you do it on everyone. But the reason why that's important is with kind of what's been going on the last 10 years, and it's going to happen the next 5 years, 10 years, the I-9 is something to really think about because it's not the same as a social security verification.
Okay, so that's a good point.
It is.
So
It
explain
really
on
is.
that.
The social security is going to be, hey, is this social valid? Was it issued around the same time as this person's been, that they were at birth? Is it a part of the deceased list, right? Are they dead? So it's more of like, hey, the social's valid. Now that's the social security verification. Now the I-9 is going to say this social matches this person, and so that's your major question.
Yeah, that's
the I-9, and so it's a great product. We call it products, but it's a great search to look for if that's important to your company.
Yeah.
Right. So you have those three different categories, but that one's kind of separate on its own, and it's a standalone, but it's an important one, especially where we're at. 10 years ago, and even where we're at, moving 10 years forward. So that's a great question.
So we really have criminal searches that you can look for, the I-9 Verify, you have the Social Security validation, you also have just your work validation, right? You're looking at speaking to employers in the past, seeing if they actually work there, and then the aspects of the college ones, those are big ones, or just certifications in general for positions that you have. Anything else that you think that an employer should be looking at, not only in construction and skilled trades, but just in a vast, just open book of what they should be looking for?
Yeah, in general, you can never go wrong with just criminal.
Yeah, okay.
Criminal can have 5 to 7 products, and he's kind of listing some of those, and we looked at 3 of them, so it's the county level, federal level, and then the state level. But then you have your social security verifications, then you have some type of like a national criminal database search, which ties into your criminal. So that would make up a package that you would consider a package for criminal.
Okay.
But what you're speaking about too is, okay, beyond that, are they certified to be a welder? Are they certified to be, even if you want to talk about medical, but are they certified off their certifications from their resume? And that's where the verification side comes in. So you have a criminal, we went over, now you have a verification, and that's where you're speaking of.
And then MVR is a big one as well, now that I just think about it.
That's a great one. That's kind of on that criminal side.
Yep.
But that's another one that, like he mentioned, like an I-9. It's maybe not part of a generic criminal. However, it ties into criminal and also that, I'll just keep it at criminal, but that MVR is going to capture certain things on your record that may not be on a county level or a state level. So it still ties into that criminal level, but it's important to have both of those outlets, if you will, because they don't always communicate from state to county level. So the MVR, or the different ways to describe it, the MVR, motor vehicle record, is going to help to add on to your criminal record.
Okay, so it's just a little.
So for example, if you're on company time, if you have a company vehicle, if you're driving, like company time, if you're a sales rep driving from place to place, or if you have a company vehicle, MVRs are important to add on to your criminal search, beyond that county, state, and federal.
So what would you say is the average turnaround time that an employer should see for a background check, usually?
So average is kind of arbitrary in a way, because that can help. So it's a great question, because there's kind of 3 things you look at for background checks. It's pricing, it's accuracy, and it's what? The turnaround time. So a good turnaround time, and it depends on what products you're looking at. There's kind of multi-facets that link up to a good background check. It's those 3 things: the price, the accuracy, and the turnaround time. So you want to really capture all 3 with a company. Now, if one's doing one better than the other, that may be okay, but essentially is, if they're turning it around in 24 hours, great, but let's pause and find out, why are they so fast? Why is every single background check? That could be from it not being so thorough. That could be from a national criminal search that's not verifying. So you're identifying certain places to look, but you're not verifying that. And how do you verify it? That's for the state. You verify it on a county, state, or a federal level.
Okay.
Right, so kind of the long story short is, you want to see backgrounds returned within 1 to 3 days. 1 to 5 days.
3 days. So
23
24
days.
to 72 hours.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay. And what would take longer? Why would it be longer, would you say?
That's a good question too. So some of the things that may take longer is some of the states. So what state are you searching? Also, not just state, but is it electronic or is it paper trail? So what states are you searching? Is it a county level? Is it a state level? Is it a federal level? But also things like places like Louisiana. So Louisiana, their parishes, we call them counties and over here, but they're parishes, but they're paper trail. So they're not electronic yet. Those may take longer than others because they're on paper. But then you have another state like New York, where they may have certain sanctions or things in place where it takes longer, but it depends on the state, kind of the county. Also, how in depth is your search?
Okay.
But
So
but
based
all
off
those
of-
things kind of factor in, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that makes all good sense, and I think it's good for everybody listening to understand that as kind of the time frame. I think some of us think that it's immediately, whenever you receive a background check, but it can take some time.
Mm-hmm.
I think another good question that a lot of employers used to ask us is, how far back do you usually go on a background check?
Yeah, I think if you want to say, no, I am no expert. We just happen to have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
I would say, I think in general, it's about 7 years. You want to look back.
Uh-huh.
Now that's contingent upon the conviction, but also the state. But also, is there any saying, or is there any stipulations behind that? So maybe a conviction is older than 7 years, but they have a probationary period of 15 years.
Yes.
That's something that might need to show up. So depending on the company, they're going to report what they can report, and then they kind of leave it up to certain companies to decide on how far back they're going to go and things like that. But there are certain restrictions based on state and convictions.
So they'll create like a what you would call a grading system based off of what they think. So a company on their end would create, hey, we're running this background check. These are what we're looking for, and this is how far we're going to go back in a background check. This is what we're going to be doing. And I think that's one of the big things that we actually haven't mentioned yet, is for a company to have an actual policy for their background check.
Great point too. I love
That they don't necessarily, they need to make sure that all of the accountants are getting the same background check, all of the salespeople, all of the skilled tradespeople. It's being all, I don't want to say the word generalized, but kept in check in the same thing for every single one.
I like to say consistency.
Consistency,
So,
okay.
great point, because
Yes,
backgrounds gets very hairy, right? So can I have 3 different backgrounds for my company? Okay, well, let's talk about that to his point. Okay, you gotta be thinking about reducing your litigation. So I keep referring back to discrimination.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is, if you can't have one background package, or you can't run one certain background on somebody, as we mentioned some of the different levels, on one person, then you do on another when they're in the same department. Now, to your point, which you brought up a great one, everybody in finance gets this package. Everybody in sales gets this package. So you may have multiple packages, because depending on what they're doing, you may have a background for them that has different levels. But if you keep it safe to each department, if you keep the consistency to each department, you should be able to keep yourself safe. For example, sales versus finance. They all have the same exact background except for 2 products or 1 product. Maybe I'm going to do a credit report on my CPA, because they have a fiduciary responsibility. They deal with money. They have a company credit card. Things like that are going to factor in. However, it's okay, because everybody in finance got this package when everybody in sales got that package, even if they're different from each other. Maybe some same similarities, but the factor is, why did you run a credit report on this person? Well, they deal with finance. Why not on sales? Well, everybody in sales got the same one, while everybody in finance got the same one. However, there's products that can help you differentiate whether you should hire that person or not.
Okay.
Right. So it's different from sales and somebody having a credit card or dealing with money.
So that's all great points, and I think we've really spoken about the need for background checks, the different products of background checks. So let's get into how we're doing it differently.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right? So I think on our end, obviously, what we've seen, we've worked in the background check industry for a while now. We have great experience in it, and what we've seen is that the numbers jump up and down a lot. So what we've created on our end is a set price, whether it comes back with 3 counties, it comes back with 5 counties, whatever it may be, you're paying a set price. So that way in your book, right, you know exactly what you're going to be paying for for every single employee based off of the packages that you create.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the job seeker side as well, where they're going to be, ordering their own background checks, it's going to be a one uptime, cost. You're not going to be paying anything extra. You'll be able to order it on our app. So Apple Pay, whatever it may be, and it's a kind of a leave it and forget it. You don't have to come back and say, when you're going to an Uber and you have to pay for a tip after, right? Ours is just going to be one straight cost.
Yeah, to elaborate on that, that's actually a great point. So Mike's talking about flat rate pricing.
Yep.
So within go2work, we have a few packages that we've created based off our knowledge and based off industry. So basic, kind of in the middle, and kind of more stringent, if you will.
Yeah, more in depth.
Yeah, for sure. And so that does factor in on pricing. So when it comes to background checks, it's not like, okay, I want this background check. So say we go back to the whole departments. Each department gets this. So say everybody in sales gets the same background check. That doesn't mean candidate A and candidate B will cost the same, depending on the company and how they price it out. Mm-hmm. So to Mike's point, we have flat rate pricing. No matter what we're searching, if we're doing these products for A and B, it's the same price. And so what I mean by that is, say for me personally, I lived in Texas my whole life. Houston, Texas. If you do a background check on me, you're gonna basically find one county, one state, right? I live in Texas and in Houston my whole life. So I'm relatively inexpensive because I only have one county and one state to search. Now, candidate B may have been more nomadic. They may have moved around a lot. They may have moved around for construction projects, for oil and gas projects, for different personal reasons, but they moved around. They live in 3 states and 8 counties, right? And so even though you're running the same criminal background check, the same products, I may be a lot cheaper than this other person because they moved around a lot. So now we're searching more counties. Now we're searching more states, things like that. And so what we have always inspired to do, not only with background checks, is be more aggressive on pricing. And so with Mike's point is, we're flat rate pricing. So if you're checking 5 counties or 3 counties or 5 counties, you're going to get the same price while still getting the same quality of the report, so the accuracy of it, right? So we're not limiting the employer or the job seeker on how in depth that package goes. It's up to you what package you choose. However, when you run the same package, we're not limiting it to how many counties you live in. It's unlimited with flat rate pricing. Yeah. And so I hope that makes sense, because if I never moved around and somebody else moved around and we have the same background check, this may cost more because they've been more nomadic, they moved around more, things like that.
And one thing, we have those set background check packages, but for an employer, it's something that they completely can customize.
Absolutely.
So we
not
can
limited
add,
to
remove, whatever it may be, and we can create that for all the employers. But like Jake said, the goal in mind is to have a flat rate, so that way you know what's coming out of your budget for every single employee.
Yeah, with the same quality, right?
Exactly. And the goal for go2work, right? One of our goals is to become the best hiring platform in the world, really is. But also make sure that we're a one-stop shop on these add-on services that truly reflect on the hiring, right? Whether it's drug testing, which we're going to be working on as well, the background checks, OMRT, having the resume builders on there for the job seeker side, and the soft skills, making sure that they're fully, understanding of what their position means and how to move up in the workplace. So it's super exciting times for us. We're very, very excited about what's coming with background checks. Really on that, when you run a background check, you ensure the trust, compliance, and you're making better hiring decisions more than anything.
And we kind of talked about that in the beginning, where we said we'd elaborate. The trust part. There's a book called The Speed of Trust by Franklin. It's Franklin Covey. If it ain't Franklin, it's Covey. It's the Covey author. But it's about speed of trust, right? So, can you do the hard skills? Do you have the soft skills? And then also, how accurate are you when you're trying to present to us who we've never met, as an example of an employer? I've never met you, but I'm going off of this trust. And so when you can line up your resume, your experience, with a background check, whether it's criminal, whether it's verifications. Now civil is a whole different ballgame, but if we can verify if we can have a background check that does do your verifications, you went to this school, you got this verification, and you pass a criminal check. Excuse me. That is kind of building that trust where it's like you already have this foot forward on day one. Now the rest is going to improve in your worth. But that day one is already a step forward because you've lined up with the employer and with what you said you're offering.
And how good does it look? You pay $60, $70 out of pocket, right? And you're already telling your new employer, hey, view my background check. You're able to give your results to an employer if need be, with a custom username and password that they would get.
Yeah.
So we're giving them access as well. If the employer needs to rerun it, if it's been a little bit of a while, they're able to do so. But it's a good starting point. It looks for you as a job seeker that you're really giving your all, right, to find this position. And I'm very, very excited.
So am I. So Mike was saying earlier how we're trying to change the culture a little bit, and I'd say 99% of the times, if not 100 right now, it's all pre-employment. So it's basically initiated by the company. Why am I doing a background check? Well, the company said so, and I want to work there. What we want to do with changing that culture is a couple of things. One, we want to make you proactive for you run your own background check on your own. But secondly, make it cost efficient. So that's why we have those certain packages in place where if you do a bare minimum, it still gives the employer, hey, look, I know on a bare minimum they passed what we needed criminally. If they want more, great, go ahead and do that. But we are allowing and trying to change the culture of not just our industry in general, but we'll start with where we're at, is a job seeker initiated. So to his point so I'm a job seeker, I signed up for go2work. I ran me a background check on myself. I'm gonna now have a little badge. I'm gonna have a little thing in my profile saying, "Hey, I've done the background check." I'm gonna basically stand out from the rest. And so it's kind of that multifaceted where we want you to be proactive to stand out, but we also want to change the culture of job seekers doing it on their own. And so that kind of ties to all that. But also what you'll see in this podcast and the rest is we do care about being more aggressive on pricing. So we are trying to push job seekers to do that. We are trying to have companies use as a background company, but also is just to push something on the job seeker side that's going to help you highlight yourself.
Yeah, it's all exciting stuff. I think on our end, like I said, we looking at 2 to 3 weeks before we come out with the service line. So be on the lookout. Follow us on all our social media, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We're all very active on there. Follow us as well. You can find me as Michael Alexander on LinkedIn and Jay Guerrero on LinkedIn for him. But really appreciate the conversation, man, and super excited about this service line. If anybody has any questions or concerns or really wanting to come out to us and learn a little bit more in detail of how our platform is going to work on this, feel free to reach out to us. You can send us an email at sales@go2work.com or just comment on here.
Yeah, we look for the comments, man. If you have a small comment, if you take 20 seconds to leave a comment, we look for those because we want to hear from you guys, from the personnel involved in this industry. So a quick comment, maybe something quick for you, like, hey, they won't read this, we're reading them. And that's going to help spark us an idea of what to go more in depth in, or just what to have a full conversation or topic about. So we do look forward to hearing from that. Likes always help, but when you leave a comment and it's something related to this video, we're looking at it, we're adhering to it, and we're gonna kind of build off that too. So we appreciate whenever y'all guys do that.
All right. Well, thanks so much, guys. Like I said, don't forget to follow us. go2work.com on all our social media as well, and download our app on Android and iOS.
Let's go. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.